Okay, so in class, the past week and a half, we've been dealing with image and several new concepts, new functions, new data type, an array list. And as we've been going through these tutorials, I've also realized that we're kind of at that point in a coding class where students are seeing enough to get the basic idea, but there's still some disconnect between the doing and the understanding, which is totally understand. It's not a criticism. I was the same way. At some point, you're like mimicking what you see in a tutorial about code. At some point, you're like, wait a minute, I want to be able to do my own thing. What the hell does this for loop actually mean? Or what is this? How are these variables working? So this tutorial, what I'm going to try to do is, it might be one or two parts, probably two parts, but I'm going to try to keep these to be about a concept and not so much like showing all of it. I guess in the first example, I'm going to show something close to that. The second part, I'm going to show basic concepts, but I'm not going to show just like here's all the code, because I think it's important for students to start using past examples and building upon that. Anyways, so let me just start, and I guess the first part of this tutorial is, in case anyone didn't miss it, is just how to load an image into open processing into any kind of sketch. So I'll just go ahead and press play here so we can see, we have a blank canvas. The very first thing is, if we have Sketch, we've mentioned Showcase Sketch, and we can modify the editor to work one way or the other. We haven't really talked about this option here, Files, save or fork the sketch to upload the files. So just the way that open processing works, it gives you a default sketch just called My Sketch, right? That's just kind of like the template. But it won't let us associate any uploaded files unless we just name it. So I'm going to call this tutorial image. One, I guess, all right? And only me. Just in this instance, and I'm going to hit submit. And of course, it just runs this sketch that's not really doing anything. Okay, so let's go ahead, and what we want to do at this point is add an image. So we'll go back to Files, and you now see that this option has changed. So drop Files here or select. I'll just select. Let's bump out of that one for a second. I'll be part of the later tutorial. And my poor wife, I'm going to use that picture of her. And it's just quickly uploading. It tells me its file size, Gen Nighttime PNG. Okay, so we have this thing kind of in the directory uploaded into the cloud, or the open processing cloud, that we can access it. So as with anything, we're going to use a variable that we could use. So let's let us start by saying let, and I'm just going to say img. And then we're going to go over here to a new function. So right now I've created a variable, but I haven't made it equal to anything. And what I want to do is, I don't want to say img equals 0. Okay, it's just a number. What I want it to do is equal an image, right? The issue is that the way the web loads, and everyone's seen this on a web page, right? You go to the local news page, and it loads this article and that article, and is putting all these things together, but it doesn't all happen at once, so it's happening asynchronously. And that can be a problem if our sketch says, right at the beginning, very first frame, let's start analyzing an image, and the image has not loaded yet. So the way we get around this is just with a different function called preload. Oops, bad typing there, right? So in here, we can say image equals the thing we want it to be. And here, what we're going to do is write a function, load image. And then inside of here, very important, is we're going to put, in fact, let's do it like this so people can see that. So we have load image, but it has to know, well, what image do you want to load? Okay, sorry, I was interrupted there. So image equals load image. So what image do we want to load? Obviously, we want to load the one that we've uploaded, right? The Gen Nighttime PNG. So what we need to do here, so we're going to start with the quote, right? We want to put everything inside of that. You can even see I started with a quote. Everything after it is now brown because it sees it as a character, right? A letter or whatever in here. And it's only going to stop when I put a second quote to end it. This is like a block quote. And inside of here, I just need to put the name of the file. And this has to be exact. This is like typing a password, right? So uppercase, lowercase, spaces, whatever. If it's going to work, it has to look exactly like this so it knows what it's, which file to go grab. And I'm going to go ahead and press play, and nothing happens, but that's a good thing, right? So I've only loaded the image. I haven't put it anywhere. But I didn't get any errors, so that's great. Let's go down here. So I do have a variable called img, which is equal to this image that I loaded. And we're going to go down to the draw. Oops. And we're going to use the new function here to draw an image. We just say image, and then we have to tell it which one we want. Right, so img. So this is which image goes in here. The image function here loads 3 arguments or 5 arguments. So the first two here the first one is just what the name of the image is, or the variable for the image. The next two are the coordinates. For the upper left-hand corner, let's just go ahead and press this, and you can see, because I have the presentation mode turned on, it's put the image all the way over here at the very top left-hand corner. I could just say mouse X and mouse Y. Right, you can see, and now the image itself, is kind of interesting, right? So the image itself is moving across the screen, and you can see my little cursor here is that upper left-hand corner, right? My poor wife, using these pictures. So anyway, so we've loaded the image, right? So now we can, it's not everything that we want to do. Let's go into the reference, and we'll just go back to the main reference here. We're going to go back to that same area that I had, but at the top here we have image. So we go into all the functions that we can use related to an image, and you can see this one looks a little bit different. We have create canvas, save canvas, load image, and it has little parentheses that basically say these are functions, right? They're these commands that we can call, and the parentheses are, indicate that that's the case, right? That this is a function. But this one right here, p5.image, shows that this is an object. It's something a little bit different. So if I click on this, we load into the reference, and it's got a more complicated, I probably wouldn't look at this yet. There's a lot of things going on here where they're playing with the color of pixels and putting random pixel color values in here. So the description, this creates a new P5 image. The P5 image is a canvas-backed representation of an image, and it could be GIFs and JPEGs and PNGs. The PM5 image class, so we haven't talked about classes here. You could say an object or a class. And we're going to talk about that later on. But the main thing to understand is that when we call out an image, it has these other methods that go with it. There are things that we can do, things that we can modify, so we could resize. In fact, let's look at this. So we could say, here's the same, a similar example. They have a variable called img. They load it into the preload. And then in this case, you could have there we go. Let's reset that. So you can see there's an image here that's being drawn. And then they have a function called if mouse pressed. Go ahead and take that image, but resize it to be, this actually is 100 by 100, so they're going to make this half the width, right? So you can see it squishes the image, or hopefully you can see that on the screen grab. Anyways, so there's some different methods we can look in there. We also have width and height that go along. Let's click on these. So you can see they're using, actually, it's kind of complicated. They're using image.width to talk about how big the for loop should be. You know, what's the condition it's measuring against. We're going to do something a little simpler than that, but it's worth looking at the documentation, trying to understand what it is. But it's the image width. Okay. And it's just a number. In fact, if I wanted to, I could say let x equal the img.width. And in this case, this is all lowercase. And let's just say print x. So I still, have the image drawing in here, but you can see 664 popped up because I told it to print x, and x happens to be how many pixels wide this is. And I could do height if I wanted to. Of course, maybe we should just call that y. And we can name it anything, right? These are just variable names, but it's 1,000, right? 664 by 1,000. So if I want to, what if I wanted to change the canvas itself so that it was the exact same size as the image? So let's keep in mind the order of operations here. We've created a variable. We've loaded this image. So P5 now knows what this image is. It also knows that it has a width and a height. So instead of this stuff here, let's just say, you know what, image width and image height. And again, this is just the variable name. I could just call this Dane, right? I could have a variable called Dane, or in fact, you know what, this is my wife. So this is Jen. And the variable name Jen is this image, and then Jen.width and Jen.height. And the image that we're going to draw with the image function, right? So this is not saying I am an image. It's saying I'm going to draw an image at these locations, and you need to give me the image itself. Tell me what it is. And there it is. It's now at the center of the screen because I've told the canvas, of course I have that stupid mouse X, let's turn that to 0, 0. Right, so now the image is fixed in the upper left-hand corner, and I've told the canvas that's drawing into the browser to be exactly the same size as the image. Okay, so 13 minutes. Let's recap here. We create a variable just as we always would, right? With letGen, the nice thing about JavaScript as opposed to processing and using Java is it's very flexible, JavaScript, of what the variables are. We don't have to tell it it's a complicated object. We don't have to declare it in these weird ways that you would see in I shouldn't say weird ways, more strict ways that you would in Java. So we can just say Jen. Okay, we have a variable named Jen. What does that equal? Well, in this case, it's not a number. It's going to equal an image. That's fine. I now know that I have an image with the exact same name that we uploaded from over here. And we're going to access the width and the height of that image, and that's how we're going to define our canvas. So we're going to make the canvas 664 pixels, I think is what it was, by 1,000 pixels, because that's what the width and the height happen to be. And then if we want to, down here in the bottom, we're going to draw an image, and we're going to put it this location and that location. In fact, maybe to make the point that was kind of in the tutorial again, let's do Gen 0 and 0 and 300. 300. So the other thing that you can do with image is define the width and the height, right? So I drew one image, and now I've drawn another one right on top of it. I think if I do 500, I'm not sure if this works this way. If I put 0 there. Yeah, so it doesn't work proportionally. There's a different command later on that would work so that it would size it. It would constrain the proportions. But what we said this was 664 divided by 2 and 1,000 divided by 2. All right, so we could make it half that size. Of course, I could have just used gen width and gen height and divided them by 2, right? So that's the size of that. So we can put anything that we want in here to make that image itself, right? So the image and then the X and Y location, or the image and the X and Y plus the width and the height. So if we want to scale that image one way or the other. Okay, I'm going to save that because I'm going to use this to come back in the next tutorial.